Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's sprint review. This is the first sprint of our first work cycle in 2025. The sprint started on January 15th and is wrapping up today. This sprint also represents the 36th sprint for Comet, the 8th for Daylight, and the 11th for Lark. So we're just going to go around and hear back from each of those teams to share what they've been working on since we got started. The other thing I want to note is that in 2025, we also had an update to how we're working together. So instead of having these big gaps between our work cycles, we're now rolling into sort of constant work cycles. So you'll be hearing from the team much more frequently moving forward. So I think the best thing to do is I would love to ask for a volunteer to see which team would like to go first.
Daylight can get kicked off first.
That would be amazing. Thanks, Elisa.
Yeah, so Daylight, we spent a lot of time in discussions. What we came to is a document called Component Library Documentation. It highlights 14 different shared components that we believe are truly unique or non-unique, agnostic to campuses, and can be then developed accordingly. We also documented accessibility needs for these style components, in which we identified 4 major points using semantic HTML, setting a role, applying ARIA attributes, and ensuring keyboard accessibility. We also noted recommendations. And if you wanted to take a look more closely at this document, our Surfliner issue ticket 1593 has a link to that documentation and some of the notes that we used to get there. But that is what we accomplished this sprint.
Thank you so much, Elisa. Does the Comet or the Lark team want to go next?
I can go. Maybe I can talk about like some of the discussions and the bug fixes, and then maybe Gabriella and you, even Chrissy, could talk about some of the testing. Um, we had several discussions about resource representation and about how to manage certain parts of the code, including things that we want to extract out into gems. We started some discussions on further planning for further work in terms of stabilizing Comet and getting it more production ready. We fixed a bunch of issues that hadn't really been reached until testing, including some stuff with file characterization, some issues with the statistics page. Nice work by our folks from Santa Cruz on both of those. A lot of work on bulk racks, both bug fixes and improvements and dealing with out of memory errors and things like that. And yeah, and there was a lot of testing that went on. So let's hear about that.
For my purposes, David, there wasn't really much testing besides testing those bulk racks tickets in order to close them out. By doing so, there were a couple of tickets that were opened that were created newly because there were some issues that were encountered. So I imagine that this next sprint, I will be hitting bulk racks heavily again. I'm currently working with Longshoe to see some importer issues, and then working with Chrissy's too, because Chrissy's running into some testings on her end and finding bugs that I want to replicate on my end before we create it as a Surfliner ticket. Chrissy, did you want to share anything here?
Yeah, I can say this hasn't really been scheduled as part of the official work cycle, but one of the things that I've been working on over the past 2 weeks locally is doing even more hammering on bulk racks to see how well it is performing for the content that we plan to migrate out of ADRL, and working with folks here at UCSB on assembling all of those various spreadsheets and files and all of the stuff that we'll need to finish that migration. We are planning to expand our testing over the next month or so. really to get more folks on our end involved in that process. And so to that end, Erica and I have been having some really good conversations, including with, I've checked in with Gabriella to just ensure that when we're coming across bugs, that we have a good process for vetting them, like Gabriella said. So recording them locally, I share them with Gabriella, and then she's been confirming if she's able to replicate it. Those that were able to replicate in both instances then get an official Surfliner bug ticket. And that helps us confirm whether or not the issues we're seeing are something related to our local environment, or if there really is something happening within the shared code base. So it's really exciting to see that workflow really come together, and hopefully we'll be getting a lot more just little bugs identified over the next coming week for the team to have in the backlog. Is there anything else that we should share on the comment side, or do we want to move into Lark?
We're okay to move to Lark?
I can give the Lark update then. So two pieces, I think. The first one is early in the sprint, I did a little bit of a spike to assess the feasibility of moving Lark from the infrastructure it's currently on into Rails, which is shared by the rest of our platforms. And the outcome of that was that we do think it's feasible and we probably would like to do it. The work hasn't quite been completed in terms of actually getting there yet, because I was working on some Comet stuff. But we're pushing ahead with that. The other piece that kind of goes along with that is, while I was looking through that and while we've been having these conversations on the Comet side, there's a fair bit of infrastructure that I think can be shared between Lark and some of our other platforms. We've done a lot of good work on SuperSkunk, making it into a good API service. And I think that that could all be included into Lark. We've done a lot of work in Comet and are planning more on the CSV functionality in Comet. And I think that that could be used in Lark for its CSV stuff. So there's little bits and pieces of work throughout Surfliner that I think we could take and reuse in Lark. And so that's probably what we're going to be looking at a little more closely in the next couple of sprints. But that was mostly just discussions at this point, figuring out, okay, what can we take and what can we use to move this forward quickly?
Thanks, Margaret. Unfortunately, or I shouldn't say unfortunately, this isn't during this work cycle, as you've heard, it's been just a lot of bug fixes, a lot of discussions, a lot of preparing work. So we don't have anything to demo this time. But I do want to see if anybody else had additional things they wanted to share, or if anyone had any questions. And I am happy to ask Gabriella to either pause or stop the recording if you have questions, because I know that that can be a little nerve-wracking.
Chrissy, I've got maybe some contextual themes that were important in this sprint that we would want to relay, which are, I think we've parceled out a lot of our core discussions that we need to have to either set a direction to kind of hit those MVP targets, specifically for like Comet and Daylight and Lark. And we use this sprint to really tease those out into more actionable tickets going forward. And though we don't have like demoable things this sprint, I know one of our focuses is in our upcoming sprint is to be able to do that. And so I think we've been highly successful in this sprint to set ourselves up to be able to start doing that. And I think the team is really delighted to be able to start doing some like progressive feature delivery and being able to demo that. So I think that is one of my big takeaways, that while we're not looking at buttons on a screen at the moment, like we will be shortly, and a lot of the work that the team's been doing in the background is actually really exciting. So a lot of really good thought went into this, and I think the team has been just doing an awesome job. So big call outs, shout outs there.
Yeah, I agree. It's been really amazing to see all of the work that was accomplished during this sprint. And I think you all should be really proud of yourselves for really setting us up to be successful during the rest of the work cycle. Any last final thoughts or questions? I am sorry that this first sprint review got off to a little bit of a rocky start, but it's a new year, and we look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.